Origins of the Arab-Israeli conflict from 1948 to the present day. Tensions in politics, culture, and history are the foundation of the intricate and multidimensional Arab-Israeli conflict. Since its inception in the late 1800s and its escalation following Israel's formation in 1948, the conflict has taken many forms, including wars, revolutions, and attempts at peace. In this video, we will highlight the origin of the Arab-Israeli conflict from 1948 to present day. Number 7. Historical context. A complex interaction of political, cultural, and historical elements that developed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries is the basis of the Arab-Israeli conflict. The creation of a Jewish state was pushed for by Zionism, a nationalist movement that emerged in response to decades of anti-Semitic persecution in Europe. Theodor Herzl's 1896 book, Der the Jewish State, which advocated for the creation of a Jewish state in Palestine, then a part of the Ottoman Empire, gave the movement impetus. According to Herzl and other Zionist founders, statehood was the only path to safety and self-determination for Jews. As Arabs fought to assert their identity and restore sovereignty from Ottoman and then European colonial powers, Arab nationalism started to take shape. After decades of colonization, the Arab community in Palestine started to feel threatened by rising Jewish immigration and property acquisitions made possible by Zionist organizations. As both groups claimed the same area, tensions grew and violent clashes broke out over political rights, cultural identity, and land ownership. With conflicting national narratives, this historical context set the setting for a war that would develop over decades. Number 6. Partition Plan. The UN Resolution 181 partition proposal was suggested in November 1947 in reaction to the growing violence between the Arab and Jewish communities in Palestine. This plan sought to establish Jerusalem as an international administrative center and two distinct states, one Jewish and one Arab. Even though Jews made up around one-third of the population at the time, the planned divide gave the Jewish state almost 55% of the country. Jewish leaders saw the idea as a chance to create a safe haven after centuries of persecution and recognized it as a valid route to statehood and security. Arab leaders, on the other hand, categorically opposed the partition plan, claiming it was unfair to provide property to a minority group at the expense of the native Arab majority. Fears of losing sovereignty and being uprooted were the main causes behind the rejection. Violence broke out between the Arab and Jewish communities as tensions rose, sparking riots and attacks on both sides. This time frame was crucial to the battle because it brought to light long-standing tensions and started a domino effect that would eventually lead to war. Number 5. Creation of Israel and First Arab-Israeli War. Shortly before the British mandate over Palestine expired, on May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion declared the creation of the State of Israel. Following this announcement, neighboring Arab states Iraq, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon took rapid military action and invaded Israel in a matter of hours. Thereafter, there was the First Arab-Israeli War 1948-1949, which was marked by fierce combat and major territorial changes. Israeli troops, however numerically inferior at first, held their newly established borders and launched counteroffensives that enlarged their area beyond the boundaries specified in the UN Partition Plan. Upon signing armistice agreements with Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon in March 1949, Israel had taken possession of roughly 78% of historic Palestine. This time frame, known to Palestinians as al-Nakba, or the catastrophe, saw the forced eviction of about 750,000 Palestinians from their homes or their forced migration as a result of violence and terror. Many of them fled to nearby nations or to camps for internally displaced people in what was left of Palestine. In addition to causing a refugee problem that continues to this day, the war inflamed Palestinian complaints over their rights and land confiscation. Number 4. Subsequent wars and territorial changes. The creation of Israel sparked a string of confrontations that intensified animosity in the area. Tensions subsided but did not entirely end after the 1948-1949 war. They resurfaced in October 1956 during the Suez Crisis, when Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal, a crucial waterway for global trade, and restricted access to Israeli shipping routes. Israel retaliated by joining forces with France and Britain in a military operation to retake control of the canal. Despite Israel's initial military triumph, international pressure, particularly from the US, compelled it to remove its troops from Sinai by March 1957. The biggest battle took place in June 1967 during the Six-Day War, when Israel launched a preemptive strike on Egypt, Jordan, and Syria in response to growing tensions with Egypt. Israel took over a large area in less than 6 days, including the Golan Heights from Syria, the West Bank from Jordan, which contained East Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip from Egypt, which had been under Egyptian rule since 1948, and the Sinai Peninsula, which was eventually returned following peace talks. These territorial gains created a vicious cycle of warfare between Israelis and Arabs that would last for decades as both sides struggled with questions of sovereignty and national identity. They also changed regional borders. Number 3. Peace efforts and intifadas. In the latter half of the 20th century, attempts for peace gathered momentum as it became increasingly apparent that discussion was necessary for stability and that military solution would not suffice to end the long-standing animosities between Israelis and Palestinians. The Oslo Accords, which were signed in September 1993 by Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization (PLO), represented a major diplomatic achievement because they created mutual recognition between the two groups and set the foundation for the establishment of the Palestinian Authority (PA), which would allow the Palestinian people to govern themselves. Notwithstanding these encouraging signs, Israeli settlement growth in occupied territories, a process that is illegal according to international law, maintained high tensions and violence from both sides persisted unabatedly during this time. The First Intifada 1987-1993 erupted as Palestinians protested against Israeli occupation through civil disobedience, campaigns like boycotts and strikes. However, it also involved violent clashes with Israeli forces using rubber bullets and live ammunition against demonstrators armed primarily with stones. Following failed peace negotiations at Camp David in July 2000 aimed at final status issues such as borders and refugees led by U.S. President Bill Clinton, frustration boiled over into violence during what became known as the Second Intifada 2000-2005. Marked by suicide bombings carried out by Palestinian militants targeting Israeli civilians alongside military incursions by Israel into Palestinian territories, resulting in high casualties on both sides. This uprising underscored frustrations over occupation while deepening divisions between Israelis who sought security measures against terrorism. Number 2. Hamas and Gaza conflicts. Amidst widespread disillusionment with Fatah's governance within Palestinian territories, due in large part to corruption allegations against its leadership and ongoing Israeli occupation policies exacerbating the economic hardships faced by Palestinians living under occupation conditions characterized by checkpoints restricting movement across borders leading into Israel proper or neighboring countries alike, the political landscape dramatically changed when Hamas, a militant Islamic organization founded during the First Intifada, won parliamentary elections in Gaza in January 2006. Hamas seized complete control of Gaza after violently overthrowing Fatah, the PA's dominant party, during clashes that lasted throughout June 2007. This led to the eventual division of governance between the two factions, with Fatah ruling the West Bank's portions and Hamas controlling the Gaza Strip. Significant changes in Palestinian governance resulted from this development, which also increased tensions between Fatah's conciliatory position and Hamas's hardline approach to facing Israel through negotiations. Since then, Israel and Hamas have fought each other in a number of military conflicts, most notably during Operation Cast Lead 2008-09, Operation Pillar of Defense 2012, and Operation Protective Edge 2014. In all of these cases, there have been significant casualties on both sides, but the civilian population inside the besieged enclave has been disproportionately affected by airstrikes that have targeted Hamas infrastructure amid accusations that it has been using civilians as human shields. Israeli blockades intended to limit Hamas's military capabilities have caused extreme economic problems for Gazans, who now lack access to food, water, energy, and medical care, worsening the already grave humanitarian conditions that existed before hostilities began. Number 1. Recent developments. Despite multiple international attempts at mediation, the issue is still very much alive and there is no sign of a sudden, satisfactory resolution. Major escalation took place in October 2023 when Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israeli territory utilizing missiles and ground invasions, resulting in considerable losses among Israeli military personnel and civilians alike. This day is remembered as one of the worst in Israeli history since the state's foundation. Israel retaliated by declaring state war and launching massive military operations throughout Gaza aimed at Hamas infrastructure. This most recent wave of violence has brought the conflict back into the public front and complicated efforts to reach a peace agreement as continuous hostilities have claimed thousands of lives in recent weeks on both sides. Humanitarian circumstance due to ongoing bombardment and blockades that restrict access to basic necessities like food, water, medical care, and electricity. Gaza has reached a critical point. This underscores the urgent need for international intervention to bring about a lasting peace between Israel and the Palestinian people while resolving the underlying issues that have been fueling the protracted conflict. As violent cycles continue without ending, unsolved underlying issues like territorial conflicts, refugee rights, and security concerns pose challenges to the region's general stability in the future. To sum up, the Arab-Israeli conflict persists as one of the world's longest-lasting conflicts due to deeply ingrained historical grudges, territorial disputes, and national identities. Thanks for watching our video, and don't forget to subscribe.